Hi everyone, good evening. Welcome to the F5 P2P session with me, Shehan Fernando. Let me give you a brief insight. Okay, who am I? I represent Alpha Business School and we'll be having this program from today until the 14th. Okay, so that's for 4 days. Sorry, there's a small typo here. Okay. And then I've been doing this subject or teaching this subject for the past 13 years. Okay, so 13 plus years of lecturing, and I'm the national prize winner of paper advanced performance management. And I was also the person who tutored the student who got the world prize for the previous sitting in December 2018. She got 90 marks and secured the world prize. Okay. So just to let you know, you are in very safe, experienced hands in terms of the sessions that's going to take place over today and the next 3 days. Right. So let me move on. Okay. So what's going to happen over the 4 days? This is what we are trying to do. Day one, introduction and tips. Okay. So I'm going to give you some tips to follow what we're going to do. Okay. And today we focus on this all important section called performance measurement and control. Okay. Tomorrow we are going to look at budgeting and control, decision making techniques on day three, that is break even, risk and uncertainty, pricing, linear programming, and also the fifth topic, which is relevant costing. And finally, on the last day, cost accounting techniques, ending tips and questions. Okay. A few housekeeping rules. I believe all of you all would have got two handouts, which is available on the webinar software. On the right side, there's a place which says handouts. You should be able to get a PowerPoint and a PDF file over there. So as you can see, I'm focusing on topics on the respective days. So what I'll be doing is I'll be teaching a little bit of theory, okay, covering basically all areas, touching on everything, okay, and at the same time moving into questions and practicing questions, including some of the questions which will be done on the platform itself also, okay, right. In addition to that, I must tell you, since I'm doing questions on the platform, okay, uh, you can't save those answers. So I want you guys to try it. Okay, hold on. Can everyone hear me? Oh, great. Okay, so just a second. Can you all see the slides that I've posted? Okay, so there's one person who's unable to see the slides. No, the slides will be not on a PDF. The slides will be on a PowerPoint itself. You have two documents which says day one PowerPoint and day one PDF. So PDF will be where you will have some questions, and the slides you directly get it from the PowerPoint. Okay. It's on the right side. There's a tab which says handouts. Just check, guys. Anyway, so what I was trying to tell you was I'm gonna like do the whole syllabus in about 10 hours, as you can see, 2.5 hours, 4 days. So I'll touch on theory areas and move on to questions. As I was telling you, the section C questions, whatever we are trying, we're going to try more section C questions, because that's the new thing to those who are moving from F1, F2, F3, or ideally the knowledge level to the skills level, because of the fact that they are not probably thorough with this platform that we are talking about. So we're going to do more questions on the platform, but there's a small weakness on the platform. You can't save any of your answers. Okay, so maybe I'll remind you to take a screenshot of the answers or something like that. But if I don't tell you that, you must take screenshots. Okay, and please ask questions. Okay, type it in as and when something comes to mind. Appreciate if you can keep your questions to the topic that we are discussing. Okay, anything else later on even is fine. Okay, even within the session is fine. If I can squeeze an answer through, then I'll do that. Okay, so that's a little bit of housekeeping. Okay, there's some questions. Okay, okay, found the PDF as well. Okay, great. Wait just a second. Let's see if I have touched on everything. Uh, Kindly give me the dates of the next webinars. Okay, as you saw, it's today, tomorrow, Thursday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Sri Lanka time it's 6:30 to 9. Pakistan time it's 6 to 8:30. So everyone can hear me, everyone can see the slides. Okay, how much of PM will be asked for APM? I'm attending for APM exam in this March, and I think I lack some basics. Yes, okay. Personally, I have gone through the APM syllabus. I must tell you, APM is a combination of PM and SBL, and probably a little bit of accountant in business, or F1 as we call it. Okay. Uh, I would say not much of PM goes to APM, because APM seems to be a more theoretical paper. There are certain aspects, however, which you need to know, especially on things like risk and uncertainty and a little bit of forecasting and all. Okay. So there's not much of other topics going into APM. Okay. So ideally, this is not an APM session. Okay. But I don't think you'll lose a lot if you sit for these sessions. Okay. Right. Yes. So if you were not very successful in the past, okay, basically don't worry. I want to say something. I'll tell you that and move on to the next slide. Okay. Right. So let me tell you about our paper structure, stuff that you already know, but never mind. Section A, 15 questions, multiple choice, 2 marks each, covers the whole syllabus. Section B, 3 questions, 5 multiple choice questions, covers the whole syllabus again. So you can't question spot. So in other words, let me focus on these areas. No, it doesn't work, because you get questions from the whole syllabus. Seeded questions. What is the seeded questions? Basically, there are 5 questions coming into section A, or 1 question with 5 subparts coming into question B as an additional question, which will not be marked at the exam. This is given for quality assurance purposes. But the thing is, you and I will not know what that question is. So therefore, you will have to focus on this question, which will not be marked, just like any other question which will be marked. So therefore, the advice given by the examiner and probably ACCA as a whole, okay, do not focus too much of time on each question, because you really don't want to focus on and waste a lot of time on a question which will not be marked. Okay, right. So section C two questions. Why I said today is very important is one of the questions that will come for the exam will be from today's lecture solely, and that will be a 20-mark question as well. So just in case you are wondering how I am saying that, simple, I'm saying that because of the fact that every past paper has a question coming in from performance measurement and control. Okay. So, but however, when we say performance measurement and control, there are 4 areas that we will focus on in terms of this performance measurement and control, which is one second, which is ideally ROI and RI, which is ratio analysis, which is transfer pricing, and which also can be something like a balance scorecard, or probably the building block model. Did anyone see that past paper question which was released recently on the building block model? Okay, good question it is for practice purposes for sure, no two words about it. It's actually a relatively simple, straightforward question, okay, which we will touch on today. So don't worry if you haven't seen anything. But then again, before this session, all of us had certain doubts. Okay, oh my god, building block model, how will this be tested? Okay, so we didn't have a very big idea, but then again, as you see, it's not anything very complicated based on what they have asked. Okay, right, so let's move on to the next slide. And as you can see, we're going to look at the CBE platform as well as to how questions are supposed to be answered, right? So then we move on to the next slide. Okay, why do students fail? Okay, this is based on examiners reports. The pass rate for December 2018 is 39%, and papers F5 to F9, this is the lowest. From 2011 onwards, so we are talking about 8 years, the highest ever in terms of a pass rate for F5 was 44%. Okay, so roughly, mathematically, sadly, 1 out of 2 will definitely fail according to this. If it's more like a 39 or a little close to or little lesser than that, 1 out of 3 it's going to be. But don't worry, I am here to make sure that you are not that one. Okay, the one who fails, by the way. I'm here to make sure that you are the one who passes. Okay, so but be attentive, participate in this program. Okay, at the same time, you need to do your own work as well in order to pass this exam. Okay, right. So let's see if there are any questions. Okay, right. So to those who failed again, okay, so don't worry, don't get discouraged. Okay, let's see what we can do this time around to pass. Okay, right. So then just a second. There are some questions. Okay, so again, there's one more person who wasn't successful last time. Okay, if I find budgeting chapters a bit difficult, I think, how to study for that. Where is it going to be examinable the most? Budgeting can be examined in actually, as you can see, any section of the syllabus. Okay, so therefore I wouldn't say focus on budgeting for these areas only. Okay. Yes, if you did paper-based exams, okay, I think this time around you will have to do the computer-based exam. Okay. Uh, I'm not too sure if some countries still offer this. Okay. Then, right. If you leave the webinar, yes, okay, I think you should be able to get the handouts. And anyway, the recorded version of it is on vimeo.com/ACCA Pakistan. Okay, right. So then pricing, budgeting, and performance. Long tested in December, sir. Yes, there were more topics as well. It's on the examiner's report. Okay. December 2018, I had a question from marginal cost, marginal revenue, but I'm confused and did not find any question from past papers. Yes. So there's this policy where ACCA does not publish all the questions coming in the past papers. Okay. So as you will see in the examiner's report, they say this session we tested the following areas and they give you 5 topics. So probably we are talking about 5 questions. Okay. And on the September paper also they said the same. So you're talking about 10 questions. Okay. So sadly, we will only get access to 2 questions from those 10 questions. This is what I see when I log into accaglobal.com. Okay. Right. One last question before I move on. Okay. This is the first time I will appear in skills level paper. So how can I adapt to the exam environment? You will understand. Please follow this program for the next 4 days. You will get a good understanding of how that will happen. Can we be able to get December paper? Because I couldn't tackle pricing. I don't think, Mohammed, you can get that paper. Okay. The only 2 questions available will be on the website. Again, even to us as lecturers, this is only what is available. Okay. I failed the exam 3 times, 45, 46, 47, and I don't know the reason. Okay. Uh, don't get disheartened, don't get upset, don't get worried. Okay, let's try this time with a little more extra effort. You're not too far away with 45, 46, 47. I'm sure you should be able to get through this time around. Okay, uh, if we don't see the questions, we will be lacking always. Okay, we need to find out where you're going wrong. Agreed, but that is ACCA's policy in terms of questions that are being published. So again, if actually I have it, I can share it with you, but I will also only be able to share what I have. I failed in December due to marginal revenue, marginal cost question. I can help you out by doing a question, but I also don't have access to that specific question because that's not there in the past paper, I believe. ACCA needs to amend this policy. Yes, Mozamil, I understand, but then again, I don't think we can do anything about it right now. Anyway, right. So, by the looks of it, there are a few people who are listening to me right now who have failed in the past. Okay. So, in my point of view, uh, so then there's someone who wants to know techniques for decision making questions. So probably you will see that when we go to that section of the syllabus. Okay, so as you can see, why do people fail? Okay, probably including some of you all who are here. Lack of knowledge. Okay, there was there were some people who did the exam previous session on a written exam. Okay, and probably there's a lot of fear on this system shifting to computer based. Okay, but my personal opinion, number one reason why you fail is lack of knowledge. You need to know your stuff. Okay, do you need to master the platform? Yes, you should. But then again, if you're giving priority to mastering the platform, without knowing your stuff, then we have a problem. So in simple words, a direct material mix and yield variance, if you can't do it on paper, you can't do it on the platform. Simple. So you knowing how to use the platform and how the functionality works will not help in you getting the answer for the direct material mix and yield variances. You need to have knowledge. So number one thing is knowledge. You have to know your stuff. Study all areas of the syllabus, practice questions, practice past paper questions. Past papers, in my point of view, don't have a lot of past papers don't have a lot of section A, section B questions, the ones you can download through ACCA Global. So therefore, I will recommend you to go into an approved publisher's exam kit, which has about 200 plus section A, section B questions. So do those questions. Okay. Probably most of you guys are following classes at a tuition provider. Okay. And in which case, why not you do some mock exams over there? Failing which, ACCA website offers you mock exams. I think some of it you will have to pay as well. Okay. But I don't think those are massive amounts to be paid at the same time. So if you can do all of this, you get the necessary knowledge. I know time's limited because we are not too far away from the exam, less than a month. But I'm sure if all of us work hard together in this, we should be able to get through and get into this 39% or whatever the pass rate, which is going to be in March 2019. Focus on all improper exam techniques, including the CBE. So some of these exam techniques over this day's lecture, I will focus on that. Okay. And CBE platform also, I will be focusing on that. Focus on all syllabus areas and all sections in the paper. Okay. So don't say, let me do only section A and B, that's 60 marks, or vice versa. Let me focus on section C first, give priority to that. No, have an equal balance on all areas of the paper, have an equal balance on all areas of the syllabus. Okay. But probably if you can focus a little more, not sacrificing certain areas. Now, for example, like what I said, I can guaranteedly tell you that a question from performance will come. Okay. And this is me telling you based on every past paper which has ever been tested for F5 or performance management. So now if you are trying to focus a little bit more on that area of the syllabus, I don't see anything wrong in something like that. But if you're trying to do that by leaving out section A of the syllabus, then I'm not recommending that. Okay. Not reading the requirement carefully. I will focus on this very specifically today. Time management issues, 1.8 minutes per mark. You know your exam is 200 minutes with the seeded question. Okay. So we are talking about 200 minutes to get 110 marks. Why the seeded question is 10 marks? No. So this will give you 1.8 something roughly. So manage your time carefully. Okay. In other words, you're going to have to answer section A, which is 30 marks, in 30 into 1.8 minutes, which is about 54 minutes. Okay. Probably I will say target a 1.5 because there can be allowances that we will have to make here and there. So manage your time properly. So this is why a student fails. Okay. This is according to myself and also more importantly the examiner based on his examiner's reports. Okay. So we must try to avoid these problems if we are to pass. Manage our time, read the question very carefully, focus on all syllabus areas and all sections, know how the platform works, use proper examination technique, and again, the most important, know what you're supposed to know, knowledge. Okay, right. So there are some questions. Okay, yes, again, I think same request to focus on marginal cost and marginal revenue. Yes, I will do a question for you which is on day after tomorrow. Okay, when I'm focusing on that area. Okay, and then I want to know exactly what an examiner wants to expect from the student, that how they write the answer specifically in performance measurement theoretical questions. Okay, half is we are looking at something in a little while. I think our first question will be on something like that. Okay, uh, I have found the OTP to be very challenging. How best can I go around that? Okay, so that is the multiple choice questions. Multiple choice questions will patients purely test your knowledge. Okay, so the problem is, if you know it, you know it. If you don't know it, you don't know it. There's no marks for workings. I, from what I know, there's no human being who will correct your multiple choice questions as well. So therefore, you have to be very precise. How do I get around it? Simply by knowing very precisely what you have to know. Okay. I don't know how to cover the entire syllabus in limited time, as we take coaching classes after the completion of syllabus. Only 15 days left for preparation. So like what I said, you will have to somehow go through the entire syllabus. Now I am going through the entire syllabus in 10 hours. Okay. So as you said, you have 15 days. Okay. I'm not too sure if you're employed somewhere, but you have to somehow manage your time. And yeah, focus on flexed budgeting. Yes, I'll do a question tomorrow for sure. And Abbas wants, please do some transfer pricing questions where you solve it. Yes, that will be today. Are you going to make a WhatsApp group for this webinar session? Not necessarily. I don't have the details as such, but then again, I'll share my email address with you. Okay, so you can always contact me through that. So then I want to share an experience with you. A variance question came up during December 18 exam. My answers did not match any of the options. I reckon there is some problem with ACCA's answer. Unfortunately, Mozamil, I won't be able to comment on this without looking at the question. I'm really sorry. Yes, I will share my email address later on. Okay. Uh, which section most questions come from? Every section of the syllabus. I'm sorry, there is no specific area which will be tested. Do you have your videos on YouTube? Not really, Asif, but then again, this section that I am doing, as it has been shared with you, is available on vimeo.com ACCA Pakistan. Right, I move on. I need to cover this whole area. So like what I said, this is basically your examiner. Okay, so I'm focusing on the slides now. I'll come back to questions in a little bit, back again. Exam technique is so important in PM that in many cases it is the difference between passing and failing. Now he very specifically states, okay, now one of the participants said I failed with 45, 46 and 47. Okay, now my personal opinion too is, okay, if your exam technique was right, I'm sure you could have scored that 5 to 6 to 4 to 3 marks. Okay, uh, you've got 47. means that doesn't mean that you don't know anything. You know quite a bit. That's how you got 47. But probably you are lacking in your exam techniques, like what the examiner says. Okay, right. So it's clear from marking the scripts that most candidates have spent a great deal of time and effort learning the syllabus and the methods required. Unfortunately, in many cases, poor exam technique makes it almost impossible to reward this effort. By far, the most common mistake I see when marking is a candidate not addressing the requirement fully. There you go. So that's why I said read the question carefully and answer every requirement of the question. Many requirements ask for 2 to 3. Okay. Now you might say, sir, that's obvious. No, they say part A, part B, part C. No, guys, this is not what they are referring to. Within part A, there are 3 requirements. I'll show you today, not too far away from now. Okay. Full marks can only be awarded if all of these are attempted. So part A, let's say they are giving you 9 marks. So 3 marks each, 3 marks each. Okay. So for example, compute a suitable ratio, put down its formula and explain why you have used it. So 3 things: compute, formula, and then explain. So 3 ratios like that will give you 9 marks. Let's say asset turnover, operating profit margin, and ROCE. So if you forget the formula, you lose 3 marks. If you forget the explanation, you lose 3 marks back again. So you need to address all requirements of the question. But let's be honest, most of us aren't after full marks. Okay. I should say you should be after full marks. Okay. The problem is that easy marks are often missed out on by not attempting all the requirements. That, of course, I agree. I too mark my students' scripts, and I realize that sometimes, yeah, there's a tendency where you calculate and not do the explanation. Okay. But sometimes when you talk to them, the reply is, it's a mock exam. Okay. Fine if it's a mock exam, but make sure you do it properly at the real exam. Okay. Right. So I move on to the next slide. This is another little bit of advice. Extract from March again. In the spreadsheet software, it was disappointing to see that many candidates were not using the software functionality to help them. It should be much quicker to answer numeric questions using a spreadsheet rather than a paper, as the calculations can be automated and any mistakes quickly corrected. Unfortunately, it was clear that many had not practiced using the software and were unfamiliar with how to use simple functions like sum to perform their calculations. So I'm sure you guys know this. Anyway, let's try some questions through that platform today also. A large number of answers had been worked out on the calculator and then typed into the cell, which would both take time and induce human error. Using a formula in a cell, it is not only quicker, it also allows the marker to see what you have done and give more credit in the event of a small error. Okay, just last week I was telling one of my students as well who had done the mock exam where the answers were calculated and included in the Excel sheet and the calculation was done on a calculator. Okay, why does the examiner, why will Shehan tell you not to do that? Okay, guys, I want you to do something like this for me. Okay, so go to your web browser, Chrome or whatever, and say ACCA PM, okay, and search. So the first search result, click on that. We are going into, click on this. We are going into a exam, by the way. CBE specimens. Click on that. Full specimen exam. we're going there. So this will be like your real exam. What you see over here, this is especially to those who are joining me for the first time, okay, or probably those who are sitting for ACCA second level paper for the first time, okay. By now you should have seen this, okay, but if you haven't, let's look at it now at least. Right, so we have 15 OT questions, okay, out of which this is the first. So you may have to pick an answer out of 4. You may have to fill in a blank, or you may have a question where you have to pick more than one answer. So these are some of the types of section A, section B questions, okay. I want to move on to an Excel sheet just to tell you something. Go to question 31. We will not be doing this right now because variances is tomorrow, okay. Now let's say you're computing a variance for the moment, okay. Let's say you are saying actual quantity into actual price, okay. Everyone focus on this a little bit. I'm trying to prove a point to you all, okay. So actual quantity, I will say the correct answer, or let's say actual quantity into standard price. I think that would be better. So actual quantity, let me say, is 10,000. Let me say the standard price is 5. Okay. So ideally, okay, let's say the correct answer is, for this calculation, 10,000 into 5. One might say very obvious. Yes, it's very obvious. So one way of doing this is 10,000 into 5. Okay. I'll say marks awarded. Okay. Just to tell you something. So for this working, let's say the student gets 2 marks. Okay. So let's say someone used the calculator. Okay. And they got 10,000 into 5. And you have the answer 50,000. So here you have the formula. Here you don't. But you will still get your 2 marks. Okay. Let's say someone ended up typing 10,000. Due to some error, you put a standard price of 4. I'm sorry, this is wrong. But when you click on this, you see one variable is right, the other is wrong. So I'll give you 1 mark for that. But let's say another person got this exact same 40,000 in the exact same way. But as you can see, I can't see how he has got it. But it's 10,000 into 4. But it is wrong. So therefore, as the marker, you don't get any marks. So if your answers are correct, with or without the working, you're good. But if your answer is wrong, and if you don't have the working, you're in trouble. Personal advice, okay, why not you put down the working on the formula, on the Excel cell itself, rather than trying it through the calculator. So this is what the examiner says, okay. Don't use your calculator to get the answers. Do it on Excel itself, okay. Right. So these are the 4 areas like what I put down in terms of the last section of the syllabus called performance measurement and control. They're going to do a small change from September onwards, if you have seen the updated syllabus, don't look at it. Let's pass now and finish it off, will you? Okay. But just to keep you updated about the changes, not that I will definitely not want you to do it because I want you to pass this time around. But they're talking about aspects about big data and things like that. Not a big change, but there are small changes. Right. Not for profit organizations, information systems, those two are also areas coming under this last section of the syllabus. Okay. Right. However, although it's the last section of the syllabus, not many 20-mark questions have been seen, or probably if you take the past papers, not even a single 20-mark question can be seen. But ratio analysis, balance scorecard, building block, ROI, RI, transfer pricing, yes, there are section C big questions. Okay, right. So we're going to focus on these 4 areas mainly. I'm going to touch on these 2, but then again, we're going to focus on these 4 areas for calculation or practicing purposes. Okay, right. So before I go there, let me take some questions. Okay, right. Uh, okay. Wait. I have covered everything in December attempt, but I'm still unable to pass. So, like what I said, maybe it's something to do with your exam techniques. Okay, I'm sure these sessions will help. Okay, don't worry, we will pass this time around somehow. Please do some rolling budgets, CR questions, because it was tested in December attempt. We will have to go through, let's see what we can do, but then again, not many rolling budgets CR questions available for us to try. Okay, like what I said, same problem as before, not all the questions are shared. Okay, uh, when are you doing part 2 questions? In a few minutes. Okay, how do students end up in 48 and 49? Yeah, sadly, probably due to the things which I mentioned previously in terms of exam technique to uh, not having sufficient knowledge, etc. And what exactly is the difference between a student who got 49 and 50? uh, Not trying to be funny over here, the difference is basically 1 mark, which the examiner was not so okay to give you. From what we have been told, okay, if you end up in some mark close to 50, okay, anyway every exam is corrected by 2 individuals, but if you end up somewhere close to 50, the paper goes to a senior official in the panel to be marked again to see if they can pass this individual. So if you still got 49, okay, unfortunately, that means 3 people went through your paper but still couldn't pass you. Okay, because they found certain faults where they thought this person hasn't got 50 to pass. Uh, there are some commenting part after the calculation. Yes, Shihab. But in ACCA's Excel sheet, it gets too difficult to write. Can you help me? Of course. Give me a few minutes. I'll tell you how that is done. Uh, Aaron says, I cannot hear you. I hope it's sorted. Sir, can't we select cell in the formula in Excel? Uh, Not very. I'm not too. I don't get your question. Can't we select the cell in the formula in Excel? You can copy and paste within the cell within the platform, but then again, yeah, I don't know if that's what's asked. So I think we need to practice NPO questions because I had a value for money question for section C. Please suggest some past year questions for this chapter. Okay, there's one old question which I will suggest to you. More emphasis on transfer pricing plus divisional performance. Yes. I was I also attempted but failed in 47. Don't worry, let's pass this time. And operating profit and net profit different? Yes, it is different. Yes, I have access to only one rolling budget, so how can we practice it? Okay. Uh, let's see if let's try to practice it within the 4-day session. I think the reason for failure is because major blunders made by us in the exam, not because of the lack of knowledge. I do feel that. Okay. In South Asia, there were grace marks about 3. I am not too sure if this is verified. Okay. I got 14 marks for not profit and 12 marks for pricing, tabular approach. I didn't practice both and failed. So there you go. So you didn't practice and failed. Don't worry. This time let's practice and pass. Okay. Value for money was also tested in December 2018. Not saying no, but what I'm saying is we don't have access to most of these questions. Okay. How is asset turnover into net profit margin equal to ROCE? I will tell you that in a little bar. If I put the formula D4 into B4, is that okay? I have 1000 in D4 and 5 in B5. That's perfectly fine. For us, that's perfectly fine, right? So I'll move on to the syllabus areas. ROCE, operating profit over capital employed into 100%. Gross profit margin is gross profit over sales into 100%. Net margin, net profit over sales into 100%. So there was a question, how is ROCE into asset turnover into net margin? So by the way, if you have been given operating profit margin, that's more appropriate. Then it will be asset turnover into operating profit margin and not net profit margin. Okay. So I will say or operating profit margin. And operating profit margin is operating profit over sales into 100%. Okay. So there was a question, how does that happen? As you can see, it becomes this formula into this formula, no? Asset turnover into net profit margin. This can be set off with this denominator numerator. So what's left is net profit over capital employed. Okay. So ideally that's what happens. So by the way, like what I said, if net profit's not there, or ideally more importantly, the more suitable one is operating profit. So that's how you get that. Okay. So it all depends on the data available in the question. Okay. Right. So we move on. 1 second. Yeah. So we move on to the next slide. The other workings or the formulas, current ratio, that is current assets over current liabilities. So these are the two liquidity ratios. Then we have working capital ratios, receivable days, payable days, inventory days. And then we have the gearing ratios, dividend cover to interest cover, which measures the risk. Okay. And we move on to a question, Thatcher International Park from the specimen paper. So that's one of the reasons why I wanted you guys to load this. Okay. You go to question number 33 on this. We have that exact same question. Right. So there was a question which was asked. Wait. Let's see. Discuss the acid test ratio. Acid test ratio is basically a liquidity ratio which tests a greater level of liquidity, where you take current assets minus stocks as against the current liabilities. Why do you minus the stocks? Simple, because there is a thought process that stocks cannot be converted into cash immediately. Okay, do section D, sorry, do section D is more likely to be tested more on theoretical questions. If you are referring to performance measurement test section D, yes, okay, more likely to type rather than compute. Is this webinar for F5 and P5? No, it's only for F5. Okay, I'm going to pray. Okay, we'll join you afterwards. That's fine. Okay, and then I'm weak in the interpretation. So we're looking at a question right now. I failed at 49 thrice. When I do mocks, I get 70. Don't worry. Let's do this session and pass this time around. Which is the best material to use? Kapil wants to know. Any approved material is fine. From what I know, Kaplan, BPP, both are approved material. Okay. One last question before I get into this. Let's get started. Highly motivated. Yes, Afri, let's do this. I can't find question 33. No, it's not on the PDF. Can you see my screen? On my screen, I am on the mock examination or specimen examination for F5. On that question number 33, click on this navigator button and go down and click on question 33. So, right. So there was a question which was asked, okay. Can you please tell me how to do the commenting part and the calculation part on Excel? Just to let you know, this is a question, as you can see, assess the performance of TIP using the information given above. That's what they're asking us to do, no? Now, they are giving you a Word document, and this will always be the case. So, commenting questions where calculations are also there, they will never ever ask you to do it on Excel. It will always be given on a Word document. So, just in case you are a little puzzled now, okay, fine, I am asked to do this on a Word document. How do I do the calculations on the Word document? You use a table and do the calculations. Okay, so I will have 4 columns: the ratio, the formula, and the calculation. I will have 3 columns, something like this. Okay, ratio, formula, and the calculation. Right. So the ratio, now in this case, let's say for example, we are trying net profit margin. So how do you do net profit margin? Net profit over sales into 100%. Okay. So if you want to, since there's 20x4 and 20x5, so let me say I'm going to calculate for 20x4. So what is the 20x4 net profit? It's 1045 million or 1045000 divided by 5,250,000 into 100%. So you got to do this calculation. Now one might say, sir, we are not in Excel. Unfortunately, if it comes to something like this, it requires you to do a manual calculation using your calculator. So I get a 19.90 and through the calculator, and I do it like this. That's how it works. So let's say I want it for the other year. I will copy it and paste it, but you will have to copy and paste cell by cell. And for 20x5, and for 20x5, I'm gonna get a net profit of 1,372,000 divided by 5,320,000 into 100%. 1,372 divided by 5,320, 25.79. Right. So this is how I didn't read the question properly even, but since there was a question asked, how do you handle it? This is how it's done. So for every calculation, probably you will get about half a mark. So I'm saying put something like 12 to 14 calculations to get 6 to 7 marks, and the balance will be your assessment. Okay. So if I'm to read the question, Thatcher International Park, TIP, is a theme park and has for many years been a successful business, which had traded profitably. About 3 years ago, the directors decided to capitalize on their success and reduce the expenditure made on new thrill rides, reduced routine maintenance where possible, and made a commitment to regularly increase admission prices. Okay. I don't see anything good in what they are doing, but I'm just reading the question. Once an admission price is paid, customers can use any of the facilities and rides for free. These steps increase profits considerably, enabling good dividends to be paid to the owners and the bonuses to the directors. The last 2 years of financial results are shown below. So they're giving you that sales, expenses, wages, routine maintenance, repairs, director salaries, bonuses, other costs, net profit, book value of assets, dividends paid, number of visitors. TIP operates a country where average inflation rate is about 1%. So they're giving that for a reason as well. Okay. See, they are talking about ticket price increases. If I can get a ticket price increase, which is probably a little more than 1% or a little less than 1%, that's a tolerable increase. But if suddenly the ticket prices have massively gone up, then that's not very positive. So assess the financial performance of TIP. So my advice, okay, and the examiner's advice, especially during this time's examiner's report also, I will personally go on a technique like this, okay, where you put the ratio, where you put the formula, where you do the computation, do all the workings one after the other, and at the bottom, okay, after doing all the workings, start typing your reasons there, okay, in paragraphs, okay. But this time the examiner also has said something like this: if you like to, okay, instead of having a 3 column, have the 4th column and say explanation here and start typing over here. That's also up to you. Personally, I will prefer this approach, okay. But since the examiner also stresses on it, okay, I don't see anything wrong in you adopting that approach as well. So even if I'm doing it at the bottom, I'm also going to explain the ratios one by one. But keep in mind, I'm going to explain the ratios where I assess the performance. Okay. If you say, now I have computed the net profit. Okay. Now, now there was a question asked. Okay. Tell me how to do the explanation. Okay. Here it goes. Okay. Now, this is one way that you can explain. Okay. Let me clear this off. Right. So one way that you can explain is, okay, based on the figures given, provided to us on Thatcher International Park, the net profit margin for 20x4 is 19.9%, and the net profit margin for 20x5 has improved to 25.79%. This is very good. Full stop. Now, this is you commenting at the bottom based on these formulas. How many marks will be awarded for that comment? I would say zero, nothing. This is a thing which the examiner mentions every session in his report. But for some odd reason, I think the students don't read these reports, continue to do the same mistakes again and again. Don't say it's good or bad, no point. I can see it's good or bad by looking at the calculations. Tell him why this has happened. Probably this is because your sales going up, your costs coming down, and in this case they are giving you certain reasons as well. Okay, reduce the expenditure made on thrill rides, reduce the maintenance cost, and possibly made a commitment to increase the admission prices. There you go. Extract your answers from the question. That's another reason why students fail. Don't bring things out of context as well. Don't talk about something which happened in a revision question that you did in class. Some people do that also. Extract correct information. Okay. So this is exam tips. This is exam technique. I know you have the knowledge. You have done the calculation. If I ask you sometimes verbally, why do you think this happened? Yes, maybe you will properly explain as well. But the problem is that's not what is happening over here. You're just saying net profit margin has gone up from last year to this year, and that is good. And that, my dear students, will not give you any marks whatsoever. Give a proper reasoning. Why has it gone up? Don't tell me if it's good or bad. If you want, you say it's good or bad, that's fine, but follow it up saying why. Okay, right. Let's take some questions before I go into the answer. Right. Let me finish this and come back to the questions. Okay. There's some getting confused when I do that. Okay, fine. So, right. So how do you assess this? So like what I said, okay, you will have to end up doing a table like this and explain your ratios one by one. Okay. So this answer, you will be able to find that in the PDF file that I have shared with you. Okay. So as you will see right at the bottom, okay, the formulas are computed. So these are the things which need to go into that table. Okay. So sales growth. Okay. How much has sales increased? So in which case, so you can probably put something like sales growth. Now, if it's for a growth ratio, you don't have to put in a formula. You don't necessarily have to say last year's sales minus this year's sales divided by last year's sales. But the formula will have to be put in. So I'll verbally say it, 5.32 million minus 5.25 million divided by 5.25 million into 100%. So that's what you will have to put here to get that answer. Okay, right. So similarly, they have computed the admission prices. This is something, say, one might say, you discuss the ratios. There was no ratio which told us how to compute admission prices. Obviously, you won't have a ratio like that in the textbook also. There will be certain ratios which you must compute, which are connected to that specific question, not necessarily a general ratio. Like, for example, the ticket price. So if you take your data set, the sales figure is given, the number of visitors are given. So roughly sales over number of visitors will give you an average ticket price. Okay. Then they give you the director's pay increase, the increase in the bonus levels, wages have gone down, customers have reduced, profits have gone up by a huge 31%. So by the looks of it, that's a good thing. Okay. And no wonder bonuses are up, director salaries are up, wages are down, employees are not treated properly, most likely. Okay. And on the other hand, customers have reduced by a 6.7%. So although your bottom line is up by 31%, I don't know if the strategies that they have adapted to get this 31% increase is good, because ideally 6.5% have reduced in terms of the number of customers. Return on assets has gone up. Lost capacity has gone up. That's a little bad. Okay. So that comes to you through, just to let you know, the next question connected to this itself. During the early part of 20X4, TIP employed a newly qualified management accountant. He quickly became concerned about the potential performance of TIP, and to investigate his concerns, he started to gather data to measure some of the non-financial measures. So the hours lost has increased from 9,000 to 32. Average waiting time has increased from 20 to 30 minutes. TIP has 50 rides of different types. It is open 360 days for 10 hours each day, but most of the time the rides are broken. As a result, people have to wait longer in their queues. 20 minutes have become 30. Assess the quality of the service which TIP provides to customers using table 1. Okay, that is this table. Okay, and any other relevant data, and indicate the risks it is likely to face if it continues with its current policies. Okay, so that calculation is what I showed you over here. Capacity of the rides, and if this is what the number of hours that I have lost, what is the capacity that I have lost? 5% going up to 17.8%. Okay, right. So how do you do the explanation? Now we've learned how to do the calculations on Microsoft Word like document when it comes to a ratio analysis question. I hope everyone's comfortable in what I just did so far and explained. So we have typed an answer over here. Okay, something like this, as you can see. I hope that's there. Yeah, there you go. So I've done all my workings. So what are all my workings? These are all my workings. So I've included certain ratios like this on the table, and now I have to explain. So sales growth is up by 1.3%, which is a little above the inflation rate, and therefore yes, so that's good. Okay, right. But I said you have to tell why. However, the admission prices jumping about 8.6%, number of visitors falling, there are clearly problems. Large increases in admission prices reduce the value proposition for the customer. It is unlikely that the rate of increase is sustainable or even justifiable. Indeed, with volumes falling, it appears that some customers are being put off, and price could be one of the reasons. Okay, so there you go. This is the explanation. So why have ticket prices gone up, and what is the impact of the ticket prices? 6.7 of the customers not deciding to turn up compared to previous years. Okay, so that's your explanation. Now in this case, the change in the ratio, that is the ticket price, is complemented by another ratio, which is the fall in the customer numbers. Okay, so this is how you connect and come up with an answer. It requires you to practice, write, give your tutor to look at it. Okay, whether you have done your answers right. So as the examiner repeatedly says, don't say this is good, this is bad. Tell me why. Maintenance and repairs. There appears to be a continuing drift away from routine maintenance, with management preferring to repair equipment as required. This does not appear to be saving any money, as the combined cost of maintenance and repair is higher in 20X5 than in 20X4. So that's understandable. Okay. But then again, what they're trying to say there is, yes, I am trying to save money on repairs, okay, and maintenance. So in 2004, the total was 340. I'm referring to the addition of these two, okay. This addition is 390. So yes, I reduce this, but what's the point in saving 10,000 there and spending 60,000 more here? So that's what they're trying to say over there. So that's the analysis. Okay. That's the assessment. So this is how you must answer. Okay. So I'll go on. Directors' pay salary levels are up by 6.7%, well above the modest inflation rate. It appears that the shareholders are happy with the financial performance of the business. So obviously the salaries are up, bonuses are up as well. So I'll move on to wages. That's down by 12%. And probably another reason, as you can see, look at how they have structured it. This is partly reflective of the loss of customers. See, you really don't want to go to a place where there is insufficient staff to serve the customers. So probably that's one of the reasons. See, we are in a modern day and age where before you go anywhere, including a restaurant, we end up checking up reviews. So if quite a few people have said that the staff is rude, the staff's insufficient, their service is not too great, even without trying out the place, there is a possibility that I might not go there. Okay. It could also be that the directors are reducing staff levels beyond the fall in level of customers to enhance short-term profitability and personal bonus. Because you cut down on the staff, the wages come down, profitability goes up. You can speak to the owners of the company as directors and claim for a bigger bonus because at the end of the day, you have increased the profitability. Okay. But when you do this, you're on a theme park, especially, customer service is going to get compromised. Okay. So ideally, and also safety as well. Okay. Now, for example, they don't mention, but I'm just saying, let's say this is a water theme park. Okay. And how deep is the water? 3 feet. And sometimes you have little kids playing around. So from location to location in this water theme park, you will have to have a guy seated on a higher elevation like a lifeguard, just seated there to make sure no one drowns. So the workload is not much, but obviously there's a cost involved in recruiting that guy. Okay. So the directors are under the impression, yeah, he doesn't do much. Okay. Previous records have been great. No one has drowned. Probably because the lifeguards were there. And let's probably send a few lifeguards home to save some cost. Net profits have gone up by 31.3%. Okay. And it's a sign of good performance. But here they don't mention too much anything about it. But then again, you must understand, why did net profit go up? Because all of these factors that we discussed before. So then they are talking about the return on assets. Okay. And the return on assets also have gone up, and reasons have been provided. Due to insufficient time, I'll move on. In terms of quality, the reliability of the rides, as they say, the hours lost has increased significantly. Equally, the percentage of capacity lost due to breakdowns is now approaching 17.8%. This would appear to be a very high number. Okay. Roughly 17.8% is about 20%. Okay. 20% is 1 out of 5. So if you have 10 rides at the theme park, 2 are broken. You're going to be a very disappointed customer coming out thinking, "Ayo, I paid for all of this." But then again, 2 are not working. Okay. And probably, like what I said, you end up going online and putting this as a review. Okay. Which will discourage more customers. This would surely increase the risk of customers being disappointed and being unable to ride. Given the fixed admission price, this is bound to irritate some customers as they have effectively already paid for this. Average queuing time, no one likes to stay in a queue. At the moment, it's 20 minutes. If it's going to become 30 minutes, it's going to be even longer period. So ideally, we're going to have a problem. Okay. You're irritating the customers even further. Okay. Why? Because of these breakdowns. So are your decisions the correct decisions? I have my doubts. Safety. The clear reduction in maintenance could easily damage the safety record of the park and is obviously a quality issue. So what are the risks that this company can face? Okay. The lack of routine maintenance could easily lead to an accident, correct? Increase competition. So on the other hand, competition will see their flaws and their profitability and probably start up similar operations. Okay. Loss of customers. Okay. Not necessarily going to another theme park. Maybe someone might end up going to a zoo, another leisure activity. And in the long run, obviously, the fall in the profits. So this is how you must answer. But I will tell you, don't be worried by the length of this answer. Okay, this is just a guideline for us to learn through this, not necessary for you to end up having all the ratios and all the explanations over here to get the 20 marks. Okay, if you can come up with some of the main points, that's more than enough for you to get the 20 marks. Okay, but obviously saying a ratio is good and bad, like what I said before, will not work, right? So that concludes that question. Okay, and from the examiner's report, the most common reason candidates do not score top marks on these questions is the lack of depth in their answers. This is what I was telling. When asked to comment, you should be looking to give more than this is good, this is worse than last year. To really score well, you should try to look for reasons why the performance is good or bad. Use the information given in the scenario to explain the numbers. Like what I said, why has profitability gone up? Routine maintenance was reduced, but later on we disputed that the maintenance cost has reduced, but repairs have gone up. But admission prices increasing by almost 9% when inflation is 1. That's why profitability went up. Reducing your staff and reducing the wages, that's why profitability went up. Okay, so this is me gathering data from the question and points from the body of the question itself. So use them, guys. And Shehan says avoid general comments. Okay, now for example, why can a net profit go up? You can find a million reasons. Even in the textbooks there are reasons. Now don't use general answers in specific situations like this, especially when reasons are provided. Okay, if you cannot find any reason, okay, do not hesitate to mention in the answer saying that due to insufficient information, I'm unable to comment on this. But obviously, you're going to get penalized if there is information and you are ignoring that piece and saying there is insufficient information. Okay, don't just say insufficient information for everything. In other words, please properly try to find the necessary information, right? I am moving on to non-financial performance indicators, but before that let me take some questions, right? Yeah, so kindly discuss tools available in Word. Okay, can I quickly touch on that? Okay, so we have the reset button. Don't ever touch it. Shall I touch it and show you what happens? Everything goes off. Cut, copy, paste, undo, redo, find, bold, italic, underline, strike through, subscript, superscript, clear the formatting. So table tool is important, alignment, bullets, numbering, increase, decrease, indent. It's actually nothing much over here. This is the font size and paragraph, etc. Okay, so that's about it in terms of explaining that. Okay, so that's sorted. Can you please tell me about transfer pricing question, balance scorecard, building block? Okay, the three E's, how to apply on these type of questions. Okay, yes. So I'm gonna start on balance scorecard and building block now. Okay, transfer pricing a little later today. It is necessary to show calculations, or can we just write the ratio directly after writing the formula? I will advise you to go with the calculations on the same logic of Excel, which I put across in Excel previously, where I said just in case the answer is wrong, you will be given partial marks if you have put the formula. So I will advise you to put it. Do I get any mark to write down the formula? Yes, I will say there is a mark allocation. Okay. Not the most important, but then again, yes, I will advise you to put down the formula. Okay. It is necessary to show all the calculations in every head of the ratio. I mean, can we directly punch the answer after showing 2 to 3 calculations? Uh, I'm not too sure what you're trying to say over there. If it's uh, if it's a situation where, now I said net profit for 2014, net profit for 2015, if it's like if you are asking me should you put down ratio, the same ratio twice, now there you can ignore it, not a problem. Okay, right. And then there are 14 marks for assessment. How many ratios should we do in this? Actually, uh, there is no specific number that we can come up with, but Shehan's judgment is half the marks for calculations and half of the marks for the explanation. But I would give a little more than half for the explanation. That's why I said about 6 marks. So half into 6 is 12 ratios. That's my assessment. Okay, what is meant by assessing the performance of TIP? Okay, that is basically what I did just now. Okay, that is what is meant by assessing the performance, basically coming up with formulas and properly giving an explanation on it. Okay, how will we know which formula to use? Depends on the question and the data provided. Now, as you can see, I can't do debtor days, creditor days, inventory turnover days over here because the data is insufficient. Okay, depends on the industry, depends on the data. So we have to answer like it may be or due to not give a confirm answer. Uh, if you can confirm the answer, please. Now, in this case, I can specifically say why did profits go up? Ticket prices are up, salaries are down. Okay. Yes, I can specifically say. But if not, yes, you are absolutely right, Hassan. Use the words maybe, possibly, due to. Okay. If you're not too sure, okay, and if data is not provided in the question. Okay. Right. So what if you don't make a table and we calculate in brackets and between the paragraph? I will not advise you to do that because that is not very professional. When you're writing an answer, to put the workings within paragraphs, okay, uh, you will see in any of the answers also they don't do that. Okay, so I will not advise you to do that. When we calculate the ratios, if sales returns are given, do we have to calculate net sales or sales? Go ahead with net sales. Atif, can I do the working before I start answering rather than doing it in the last? Obviously, you will have to do that before starting, but what you can do is if you want to, okay, you can start it off and then with this format start typing the answer above the table, that's okay. So anything's fine, not a problem, as long as everything's there. There is a reduction in the visitors but longer lines. How can we explain? Simple. Because you're taking more time on each ride due to the repairs and the breakdowns, the 19,000 hours or so which has got lost. How much words per minute we have to write in order to cope up with time and length of answer. Okay, so the advice given by ACCA is 25 to 30 words per minute. Okay, which is definitely much lesser than super fast typists who go, I think, about 80 to 100 a minute. Okay, so they are not wanting you to type massively fast. Okay, so that's why I said you don't need to type that whole answer. Is it necessary to answer in a detailed way? Zishan wants to know. Of course. When we calculate payable days, do we have to get net purchases? If the net purchases can be found, Atif, yes. Give only one comment for people. Not from. I'm not too sure what you're trying to say, but if you're trying to say that one comment should be sufficient for each ratio, yes, to a certain extent, I too agree with that. Okay. So, how can we link dividend paid with an interpretation? Dividend paid with an okay, how do you interpret dividend paid? So, basically, tells you that the company has enough money to return to the shareholders. You and I know that dividends is not a must to be paid, but if you are paying it, that means you are relatively strong in terms of your financials and have sufficient funds to pay your shareholders. Okay, a return. Table can be shown in a working. Yeah, so that's what I said. If you're putting it at the bottom, it's like a working, that's okay. Do you comment on how the inflation has an effect on the company performance? Okay, yes, I said that the inflation will not have a massive effect on the company's performance, it's since it's 1%. But when inflation's 1% and if your ticket prices go up by 8%, then it's a concern. Okay, right. So let me quickly move on to the PowerPoint non-financial performance indicators. Okay, financial performance appraisal often reveals the ultimate effects of operational factors and decisions, but non-financial indicators are needed to monitor the causes. So, critical success factors are often non financial, for example, brand reputation, etc. Stakeholders' objectives may also be non financial. Okay. So, there are two main tools that we use for this purpose: the balance scorecard, okay, four perspectives: financial, customer, innovation, and learning, internal business. And then we have a question. Hold on to that. Okay, yeah, so what we will do is, okay, there's a question on the balance scorecard. We will take a break. Okay, not for very long, we have to finish this today. So therefore, can we come back in about 5 minutes? Okay, we have just if I my judgments right, we have just 1 more hour. So can we take a break and come back in 5 minutes? Okay. I'm back. Hmm, okay. Number of visitors decreased. Why? Possibly due to a ticket price increase. They don't see value for money. So if we are going to make table on Word, then Excel will be left empty. No, you won't have now, as you saw, okay, when you take this, your answer is on Excel Word only, both answers. There is no Excel. No, you can't pick the platform. They will either give you Word, either give you Excel. You can't select. So if they give you Excel, you have to do the calculations on Excel. Most likely, they're not going to ask you to comment on it. And if so, even it will be something very small. Okay. Uh, Sorry if I'm too fast. What we need to cover in this session. Okay. So today we are covering performance measurement. Can you please tell me that if in the question building block model, he asked that which is the dimension of profit financial performance, which option we choose? So we look at that below. I can't hear the voice. I hope. Okay, I think there's nothing wrong with that. Please discuss sales growth in the last question. How is it calculated? Ah, sure, I can do that. So I'll quickly do sales growth. Okay, so sales growth is basically now according to this 5,320,000 minus 5,250,000 divided by 5,250,000 into 100%. I'll quickly erase this. So basically, the second year's figure minus the first year's figure divided by the first year's figure. Okay. Yeah, I'll answer your question. I think you're referring to that past paper. Okay, so we are moving into building block model. I haven't touched on transfer pricing still. Right, so let me clear this and I move on to Jam Air. So Jam Air, you will see over here the question. Jam Air was founded in September 2007 and one of the growing number of low-cost airlines in the country of Shania. Jam Air's strategy to operate as a low-cost, high-effective airline, and it does this by operating in secondary cities where the landing cost is cheap, using one type of aircraft so that you don't have to basically have expertise how to repair and manage different types of aircrafts. Okay, planes are leased rather than bought outright, so that's even cheaper. Having only one category of seat class. Okay, no seats, pre-allocated seats and in-flight entertainment, and focusing on e-commerce with customers both booking tickets and checking in for flights online, so which means you don't need to have staff. The airline was given the on-time arrival ranking of 7th best in the country's aviation authority, who rank all 50 of the country's airlines based on a number of flights which arrive on time at their destinations. 48 Jam Air flights were cancelled in 2013 compared to 35 in 2012. This increase was due to an increase in the staff absentee rate at Jam Air from 3 days per staff member to 4.5 days. Okay, so more flights being cancelled. Why? More people taking holidays. Okay, the average ground turnaround time is 50 minutes, meaning that on average planes are on the ground for cleaning, refueling, etc. for 50 minutes before departing again. Customer satisfaction surveys have shown that 85% of the customers are happy with the standard of the cleanliness. The number of passengers carried by the airline has grown from 300,000 to in 3428 flights in 2007 to 920,000 on 7650 flights. The overall growth of the airline has been helped by the limited route licensing policy of the government, which has given Jam Air almost monopoly status on some of the routes. However, the government is now set to change this policy. Basically, the government is going to remove the monopoly status and other people also coming into this picture, right? Describe the 4 perspectives for 6 marks. Okay, so I'm not gonna waste time on that. That's basically theory that has nothing to do with Jam Air. Okay, so the financial perspective, the customer perspective, internal perspective, and the learning and growth perspective, what each of these mean. Okay, so the financial perspective is concerned with how the company looks at the shareholders, how to create value. Okay, and basically based on 3 principles: growth, revenue growth and mix, cost reduction, and asset utilization. Let me take one more. Customer perspective considers how the organization appears to customers. The organization should ask itself, to achieve our vision, how should we appear to our customers? The customer perspective should identify the customer and market segment in which the business will compete. There's a strong link between the customer perspective and revenue objectives. Correct? No? If you are looking after the customers properly, they will generally or definitely bring in more customers, and as a result, financially, the company will be strong. So as you can see, the answers are structured in a way where they are not talking anything about jamware. This is at least for part A of the question. For part B, this is an important question, by the way. Yeah? Everyone, please put an extra focus for each perspective. So I'll underline that of the balance scorecard, or maybe let's highlight it. Okay. Identify one goal together with a corresponding performance measure which could be used by JAMA to measure the performance. The goals and measures should be specifically relevant to JAMA. Okay. Each pair of goals and measures, explain why you have chosen them. So you take each perspective. Okay. So ideally, you will say perspective. I'll just go with 1, 2, 3, 4. So perspective 1, and you will say this is the goal, this is the measure, and you will say this is why I selected this, the reason. Perspective 2, this is the goal, this is the measure, and you will say give the reason as to why you have selected it. If you don't use this approach, you're going to lose marks. If you forget the goal and write the measure and the reason, you're going to get only 1/3 of the marks. If you write the goal and write the measure, sorry, you're going to get only 2/3. You're going to get 2/3 of the marks back again. So if you leave out one piece, this is what I was telling you. Okay, answer every piece. I'm not referring to section B. I'm referring to what is within section B. Okay, so you have to have all three for all four perspectives to make sure you have the chance of getting full marks. If you leave out one thing, 1/3 of the mark allocation will be missing for sure. No two words about it. This is what the examiner says. Okay. So before I look at the answer, okay, let me go back to what the examiner says. Okay. This is what I was telling you. By far the most common mistake I see when marking is the candidate not addressing the requirement fully. Many requirements ask for 2 to 3 different things. Full marks can be awarded if all of these are attempted, but let's be honest, most of us aren't after full marks. The problem is that easy marks are often missed out by not attempting all of the requirements. Again, I'm stressing it's not part B that I didn't attempt, it's a piece of part B that I forgot. As a result, lost a few marks. Okay, right. So moving on to the answer of the question, see, okay, one person had asked, should I, how should I structure this? Okay, so I'm saying, okay, why not you go exactly like this? Okay, like what I said, put the perspective down, financial perspective, like a heading, just say goal and put a dash and mention the goal, and then performance measure, okay, or just say measure and mention the measure, put a dash, and then reason, put a dash and explain why. So you're clearly telling the examiner what he wants to see. So there is no reason why you should lose marks if you're writing the proper thing. Okay. So financial perspective, use fewer planes to transport. How do you measure that? Least cost per customer. And operating efficiency will be driven by getting more customers on fewer planes. So therefore, this goal and measure will cover the cost side of things. Another one, to increase the seat revenue per plane, revenue per available passenger mile. And the explanation, this covers the first part of achieving operating efficiency by having fewer empty seats on the plane. So this is how you must structure your answer. Let me go to customer perspective. By the way, one should do, from what I understand, you don't have to put for each performance measure 2 goals, 2 measures, and 2 reasons. One is fine. Why have they given 2? For our understanding and learning purposes. Keep in mind, depends on the mark allocation. Right. So customer perspective, the goal to ensure flights are on time. So how do you measure that? How many flights are on time? Or ideally, in this case, like what the question says, Remember extracting info from the question, the on-time arrival ranking from the aviation authority. Explanation: JAMA is currently number 7 on the rankings. If it becomes known as a particularly reliable airline, customers are more likely to use it, which will ultimately increase revenues. Okay, right. So then internal perspective, I'll jump on to one. So what is this internal perspective? Basically the internal operations of the company, especially in an airline. Okay, how long are the queues, then how to what extent do luggages get mixed up or lost, are you taking off and landing on time, again this turnaround time which they had mentioned. So all of these, the internal operational aspects is measured through the internal perspective. So to improve turnaround time, as they say over there, so how do you measure that? On the ground time. So the lesser the on the ground time, you are improving turnaround time. So less time spent on the ground means fewer planes are needed, which will reduce plane leasing costs. It is important not to compromise on the quality. So you don't want a dirty plane, stinky plane to take off just because you want to take off fast. So don't compromise on the quality, and more importantly, don't compromise on the technical aspects. Do the necessary safety checks, the refueling, etc. And finally, to go on to the learning perspective, I'll take a measure there to reduce the absentee rate, the number of days absent per employee. That's how you measure it. It is critical that Jam Air that its workforce is reliable. At worst, absent staff lead to cancel flights. So therefore, make sure that this number of days absent reduce. Okay, and make sure somehow the you are able to get more staff to come to work. Right. So then I move on to our handout, and this relatively new, this hasn't been there in the olden syllabuses, okay, is something called the building block model by Fitzgerald and Moore. Okay, recommended to be used for service industries based on 3 building blocks called dimensions, 6 aspects that we look at there, standards, we look at 3 aspects, and rewards, again 3 aspects. Okay, right. So there was a question. Okay, yes, as you can see here, our focus is on financial performance. But when I say financial performance, there are obviously so many ratios that we can look at, including profitability. There was a question which was asked. Right. So from your latest, okay, quick one, it's MCQ time for you. Which of the following statements regarding the building block model is correct? Can you drop in an answer over there? What's the answer to this question? From the specimen paper. I'm getting CDA. Quite a few people saying CD. Correct answer. Let's read. The determinants of performance are quality, innovation, resource utilization, and competitiveness. Quality, innovation, resource utilization, competitiveness. That's wrong. Okay. Standards are targets of performance and should be fair, achievable, and controllable. Fair, Achievable, no, ownership is there. Controllability is what they're talking about. That's wrong. Rewards encourage staff to work towards the standards and should be clear, motivating, and controllable. Clear, motivating, controllable, correct. It is a measurement framework used for service organization. So, like what I said, third and fourth is right. So, answer C for cat. Right. So, we move on to that recent past paper question, which I have included over here. One stop car company. That is from December 2018. Okay. The one stop car company offers a range of services for car owners at its 55 service centers across the country. The car maintenance business is extremely competitive in all regions across the country. Each service center operates autonomously, and managers are able to choose how to package up the services as they offer. So, I told you this is a building block question. Remember, I was telling you it's for service organization. So, we are servicing cars and other activities connected to car servicing. OSC company aims to make the task of the car maintenance a pleasure and not a chore. Okay. So how do they do this? Range of service packs available, including express service and full valet. We work while you wait with an average waiting time of about 2 hours. You wait for 2 hours, I'll get everything done for you. Watch our friendly, experienced mechanics producing high quality work. I don't know, there's a majority of people who like to see what's happening. So if you can allow that, probably that will be taken as a positive thing, because I know certain workshops will not allow the customers into their workshops. Freshly made tea and coffee and free internet for our in our comfortable lounges. Monthly free price draw for all customers completing the online feedback form. Customers initially access the national website, but depending on their location, they are automatically redirected to the website of the nearest service center so that they can view the offers available at the center. All bookings are made through the OSC website. Results of one of the service centers, the Midland Service Center, for the year which has just ended, are given below. The column headed OSC shows the average figures for all of OSC companies' 55 service centers. So MSC is a selected service center out of the 55. OSC average is the average of all 55 service centers. So you have sales revenue, gross profit, number of mechanics, senior, junior, number of new service packs developed, number of website hits, number of jobs booked and completed, number of jobs from repeat customers, total time spent completing jobs, percentage of customer feedback forms showing a score of 9 or 10. Mechanics are classified as senior if they have been qualified for more than 5 years. Okay, so that's note number 1. Junior mechanics include both trainee mechanics who are unqualified and mechanics who have been qualified for less than 5 years. Okay. The MSC introduced 3 new service packs. So this is like combined offers, free valets for over $100, a safety check of 20, costing only 20 compared to the usual 40, $10 air conditioning efficiency check, which usually costs 20, okay, for all customers booking an oil change. These 3 new service packs produced revenue of 66,000, 58,000, and 54,000 respectively. 2 comparable new service packs developed by other centers produced revenues of 44,000 and 42,000. The online feedback form asks customers to rate from 1 to 10, 10 being the best, right? So CEO of OSC company has recently attended a business seminar and heard about Fitzgerald and Moon's building block model of performance management. The CEO is interested in how the dimensions building block could be applied at OSC company. The dimensions of performance identified in the model are competitiveness, financial performance, quality of service, flexibility, resource utilization, and innovation. So the good thing is they are giving you the 6 performance dimensions. Okay. For each of the dimensions, calculate one performance indicator. Again, similar story. I'll get my pen out. So I have to calculate a performance indicator for MSc and one for OSC. So two calculations. Justify your choice of the performance indicator, and discuss MSc's performance relative to the other OSC service centers. So you got to mention the dimension, do two calculations, justify, and do a discussion. So ideally, roughly about 3 tasks to be done for each dimension. Okay, 16 marks. Okay, and they say for 6 dimensions. Okay, so ideally, I will have to follow this particular pattern if I'm to get the necessary marks. Okay, so what is the first dimension? As you can see, it's competitiveness. Okay, so let's move on. As you can see over there, competitiveness. How do you measure competitiveness? Percentage of website hits converted to orders. Okay, right. So website hits, I have it over here. Okay, and where is that? There you go, 14,000. Okay, and the number of books jobs booked and completed, 9506. So what is 9,500 over 14,000? That's what they're trying to do over there. Okay, what is 11,000 over 18,000? Okay, so now MSc is one of the centers, OSC is the average. This ratio indicates whether MSc services are attractive compared to its customers, which is important if it's going to survive in such a competitive market. It has performed substantially better than OSC service centers average, having 67.9. I will not use the word substantially. It's just 3% more. So, but he's using the word substantially. Okay, it's because you can't say it's like a massive improvement. Okay, compared to 65%. So can you see how the answer has been structured? Okay, so like what I said, to pass this, you need to have the knowledge on how it's done, computing ratios, and what this financial aspect and competitiveness, etc., means. Okay, and explaining what you have computed. But it has to be done in the way he wants it, which is get me the two ratios, justify your indicators, and discuss the performance, okay, of one against another. Okay, so financial performance, okay, it's the same financial performance, the ratios, if you can remember, I told you this. Okay, so gross profit margin is the preferred measure for financial performance for the data presented. It shows the percentage of revenue which exceeds the cost of goods sold. MSC's gross profit margin is almost 3 percentage points higher than the average, which is a good result. Okay, but don't stop there. Don't say good and stop, like what I said. This could be due to this could be partly because they did relatively well on their new service pack sales, but also likely to be because their ratio of senior mechanics to junior mechanics is lower than the average, and junior mechanics will invariably be paid less. Okay, so they are giving you two possible reasons. So always back up your answer with a proper explanation. Okay, so again, in terms of the service specs, so I can probably look at something like innovation. Okay. So to explain the service specs, there you are. So that's the same thing that they're trying to do. Okay. So as you can see, innovation, these new service packs, okay, these new promotions or packs that you launched has given me what percentage of my total revenue. So if you take MSC, they got 23%, whereas OSC got only 9.66%. So your new strategy that you have implemented has perfectly worked. That's what you will have to say. The 23.4% indicates MSC is indeed innovative in their approach. Okay, this is a new thing that you're introducing. Okay, and the new thing has worked compared to the average of the other 54 sales centers. Okay, they've outperformed the other same centers on or other service centers on this front, generating a far larger part of its revenue by the introduction of new service packs, which must have attracted customers. This is really strong performance. Okay. So again, resource utilization talks about sales per mechanic. Flexibility talks about how long you're taking per job. Okay. And quality of service, percentage of jobs from repeat customers. So that means you know that the customers are happy, that's why they're coming over to you. So similar explanations need to be done. Okay, I'm focusing on here both subject matter or knowledge in terms of the building block model, at the same time how you present your answer. Okay, explain how the standards and rewards blocks support the dimensions building block in dimensions block in Fitzgerald and Moon's building block model. Right. So ideally, what can I say about this? When you're preparing standards, okay, make sure it's fair. Okay. Give them ownership. Meaning, how can you give ownership? Probably through a mechanism like participative budgeting. So when you give them ownership and when it's fair, there is a tendency that they will somehow try to achieve that target. So that's achievability. So explain that in the same words that I said even is fine. What can you say about rewards? Make sure that the rewards are clearly addressed or clearly mentioned to you. Okay, or clearly expressed to the employees. Okay, that itself will automatically motivate you to achieve those rewards because it's clearly mentioned. Don't say if the profits are good, I'll give you a bonus. Say if the profits are beyond 2 million, I'll give you a 3% bonus to be shared among the employees. Very clearly mentioned. So now you are motivated to somehow hit that target. At the same time, don't hold them responsible for matters which they don't have control over. That's going to cause demotivation. So if you can say those things which I said in your own words regarding standards and rewards, we are good. Okay, right. What does the examiner say here? Okay, so explain, okay, why the balance scorecard. So similar question. Okay, so I'll go to his comments directly and move into some questions which you have posed. Many candidates were here would see the requirement and read balance scorecards more useful. They would then list the advantages of the balance scorecard. Okay, they've learned while this will touch on the same points, it is only half of the requirement. We need to explain and not list. So I need a detailed answer. As my heading says, take this verb seriously. Okay. So list, define are more low level verbs where they don't expect you to write too much. Analyze, explain wants you to go into depth. So if they say analyze, and if you're putting bullet points 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you're going nowhere and you're losing marks. If they say list, and if you're writing paragraphs, I'm not saying you're not going anywhere, but then again, you're going to waste time unnecessarily, where you can write a short answer to get complete marks, where you're writing paragraphs and paragraphs now. Okay, right. I'll give you a link on the last day as to what these verbs are going to be. Okay. The PM exam is also quite time pressured. Part of good exam technique is time management. While it may be tempting to spend more time on the written questions than guess the OTs if you run out of time, I'd advise against this. So some of the OTs will be less time consuming than others. And if you don't leave enough time, you could miss out on easy marks you would otherwise have scored. An extra 10 minutes on section C might improve your score by 2 to 3 marks, but you could have been spent on getting 3 short questions correct for 6 marks. Okay. So ideally, optimize your time management is another thing what the examiner tells you over there. Correct, no, guys? Sometimes you're trying to write 2 to 3 points to get about 2 to 3 marks on a section C question, whereas there are 3 very short MCQs. Within that 2 to 3 minutes, you can end up getting 6 marks. Okay. So ideally, okay, again, focus on the whole paper, equally balance it out as well. Okay, so don't focus on one section only. Okay, if not, you might fall into trouble and possibly end up failing it as well. Right, so then we move on to transfer pricing, but hold on, I said I'll take some questions. Okay, uh, salary is not usually included in gross profit. uh, if it's like a manufacturing cost salary, yes, it is included. Okay, so for example, like direct labor is a salary which is included in gross profit and cost of sales. Okay, what MSc have introduced new. Okay, so if you read the question, they have introduced 3 new service packs. Okay, that's what they have introduced newly. Quite kindly explain equity. Equity is fairness. Okay, so in terms of I think this is the block that we are talking about. No? Yeah, so ideally we are talking about equity in terms of standards. Okay, so make sure that the standards that you are preparing are fair. Okay, so that's what equity refers to. Okay, and see, different people will be within the same company. There will be different people, different managers in different branches, etc. Okay, so ideally you might not be able to reward them equally adequately. So but at the same time, make sure that you make the standards are prepared in a fair manner. When I say fair, not necessarily equally. Okay, because certain places might be more populated and you have access to more people over there. Okay, certain places will have a lesser population, so you can't create standards which are exactly the same. Okay, so you have to be a little fair. Okay, right. uh, then how can salaries of junior senior staff be justified using the gross profit margins if salaries are deducted after the gross profit calculation? Okay, uh, let me get back to that question. Okay, by the way, there's another question. Equity, this equity is fairness. It has nothing to do with equity on the balance sheet. Okay, right. So let me go back to the salaries and all. Yeah, so in this case, okay, Yes, probably it's included in the gross profit itself, okay, because you're talking about mechanics. Mechanics probably are directly involved in getting these tasks done, no? So on that note, yes, okay, the salaries of the mechanics are deducted from the sales revenue to get the gross profit. Yes, okay. So I hope that answers the question, Afri. Right. So we move on to the next piece. Okay. Like what I said, we have transfer pricing. Okay. Right. So we have 15 minutes left as well. Just give me a second. Okay. I'm going to skip 4 slides. Okay. I'll come back to transfer pricing. So return on investment. Okay. Right. So return on investment is controllable profit over controllable capital employed. It has its pluses and minuses. It's a relative measure. It's used externally and therefore understood by users. Encourages good use of existing capital resources. Can be broken down into secondary ratios. Disadvantages: ROI will increase as assets get older if net book values are used. Okay, so this is, in other words, based on depreciation, automatically the ROI can go up even if profitability is not too great. May lead to dysfunctional decision making. Sometimes you end up picking the wrong project because ROI currently is 30. This project gives you 25. Target is 20. Although 25 is above 20, but still the overall 30 is going to drop if you take this up. So you end up rejecting a good project. And accounting policies can confuse comparisons. Okay. So these weaknesses are eliminated by the RI, or the residual income, that is pre-tax controllable profit minus the imputed charge for controllable invested capital. Advantages of the residual income: reduces the problem of rejecting projects with ROIs greater than the group target but less than the division's current ROI. So that problem solved, like what I said. Use of different rates of interest. Correct. So that's a good thing. How do you compute this imputed charge? So that is basically, we call it the investment into the imputed interest rate. Okay. So what they're saying here is, if the industry that you're functioning is more riskier, okay, you can have a higher interest rate. If the industry that you're functioning or the project that you're undertaking is a relatively low risk project, you can go with a low interest rate. Cost of financing is brought home to divisional managers. So that also gets taken into account through this piece. The disadvantage over here is it doesn't facilitate comparisons between divisions of different sizes. Okay, fine. So that's one of the weaknesses in the RI. So next slide, we have a small question. Okay, so on ROI and RI, let's do that. Okay, right. So there's a question which just came in as well. Let's see. What is the difference between ROI and ROCE? Okay, it's actually pretty similar. Return, if you break it down to detail, okay, return on investment is more of a divisional performance measure. Okay, uh, okay, let me say it's almost the same. Okay, because capital employed becomes the investment. Okay, and operating profit becomes the return. So you can assume that's right. It's the same. Okay. But generally, this is for divisional comparisons. ROC is for more of a ratio analysis. Okay. Uh, it was very useful. Thanks, Atif. Kindly discuss the advantages of the RI again. Okay. I'll quickly touch on that and move on to this question. We have limited time for the day. right? Advantages was like what I said, if the project is giving you 25 and the target's 20 and the current figure is 30, based on ROI you reject it, but based on RI it's accepted. That's what it says. Different rates are used and the cost of financing. Different rates are used to analyze the risk levels of the company. Okay, so those two aspects are taken into account through this imputed charge for controllable invested capital. Okay, so the risk level and the fact that you have financed the business and the financing cost. Okay, right. So 28 Brace Company. So Brace Company is this question. I'm leaving Mob Company. Okay, Brace Company is split into two divisions. Okay, and by the way, I'll quickly move on to this. This was the specimen paper. Okay, I'll knock that off. Okay, one, just in case you guys don't know, okay, how do you practice on the platform? Just type ACCA constructed response workspace on Google. Click on the first search result. And click on access workspace. Which is not found. Sometimes it doesn't work. Today is our unlucky day. Oh no, it's working. There you go. Right. So go next. Go next again. Go next again. And go next again. And go next and a yes. Right. And go to a spreadsheet. And let's do this question. Brace Company is split into two divisions, A and B, each of with their own cost and revenue streams. Each of them is managed by a divisional manager who has the power to make all investment decisions within the division. The cost of capital for both divisions is 12%. Historically, investment decisions have been made by calculating the return on investment, which they say is 16%. A new manager has recently been appointed, and he is arguing that argued that using residual income to make investment decisions would result in better goal congruence. Okay, right. They're giving you capital, sales, net profit. Calculate the return on investment for each of the two divisions and the residual income. Right. So you will be given this question and they will ask you part A and B and you're supposed to do this on Excel. I don't know. This is how I will advise you to do it. Okay. Right. So they have given me three things: capital, sales, net profit margin. Okay. Right. So I'll say capital, sales, net profit margin. Okay. Right. So capital is how much? 82.8, 40.6. Sales is how much? 44.6, 21.8. Net profit margin is how much? 28% and 33%. Okay. By the way, this is division A and division B. So now when it comes to this, I will not advise you to write the formula because you will be seeing the formula anyway. Okay, so therefore net profit, first of all, see this everyone. Okay, this is the wonder of Excel. Okay, sales into net profit. uh, what was that? Sorry, I made a blunder out of the wonder. 44.6. Okay, so net profit is equals sales why is that happening, equals it's not functioning properly today. This was complained to me by one of the students as well. So what I'll do is, okay, I'll quickly move on to an Excel and do that for you guys. Capital sales, so assume it's the same as the platform, by the way. So there's A and B. There's capital, sales, net profit margin, and I'm gonna compute the net profit. Then I'm gonna compute ROI and RI. So capital is how much? 82.8, 40.6, 44.6, 21.8, 28% and 33%. So this will be the case, don't worry, okay? The platform will work. So net profit is this into this, okay? So that's 12. ROI is what? Net profit divided by capital. There you are. So we can make this a percentage, okay? If you want, let's say into 100, but there the tool is available. And RI is what? They said the cost of capital is 16%, okay? So RI is equals net profit minus open brackets capital into 0.16 close brackets. So copy this. This will happen in the platform also and paste. There you are. So automatically you get the net profit for company B, the capital employed, which is net profit over capital for company B, and the RI, which is net profit minus investment into 16%. Okay, right. I want to know you are. Okay. Will writing NP be accepted instead of typing the net profit, the whole word? Yes, that's perfectly fine. Don't worry about it. Okay. Someone says, I face the same problem. Okay. But don't worry, at the exam, that problem will be sorted. Okay. Now, we didn't have that problem when we were trying to look at that question on the uh, platform which was there on the specimen exam. Okay. Right. So, quickly moving on, I'll just take a few minutes of your time. Okay. Move on to the PowerPoint 29. So then we have aspects of value for money, which is effectiveness, efficiency, and economy. Just 5 minutes, guys. Okay. Economy is how frugally you spend your funds. Efficiency is more of a productivity type of a measure, getting more output for the given input or getting the same output for lesser input. Effectiveness is basically choosing the correct objectives and doing the correct thing. Okay. So on that note, I think I have about two MCQs. Okay. Hold on to this. Strategic planning, management control, and operational control, the different levels. Obviously, the top level focusing on planning activities, which is more on long-term basis. Okay. Uh, very the plans as to entering new markets, etc. Okay, that's done by the strategic planning department. Whereas more short-term aspects, which must be very detailed. Now here, strategic planning, the information not necessarily very detailed. Okay, but here it must be very detailed. Okay, so management control is the tier which handles the aspects in between. Okay, so the design of systems. Okay, so the key considerations in terms of system design include the planning levels, the company structure, little bit know about open and closed systems, contingency theories, responsibility accounting, the behavioral aspects, and also the elements such as the sources of information, etc. Okay. So then, not forgetting the different aspects connected to the systems. Okay. So quickly, let's look at these three MCQs and close it for the day. Uh, quickly, if I can have an answer to this, guys, it's MCQ from the specimen paper. Uh, since we ran short of time today, soon as we start tomorrow's lesson, we will start transfer pricing and move on to the rest of the things which were planned to be done tomorrow.